I'm getting you away. Deer would, and other game would largely be hunted by the lords. For sport, you know, for fun, sometimes for meat. And then once they've hunted it, they'll give it off to people like me, so I can prepare it, I can take the hides off, I can cure the hides, give it to them, or I can sell the hides for them. And then I prepare the meat as well for them, which they would generally have themselves, but sometimes there was in the medieval times there was a gift culture, so you wouldn't just throw something away. If you think somebody else could have a use of it, you would give it to them. So there are times where there are like gamekeepers who would hunt these things.
Del vostre becos cum retraia, plasam novel chiamo matraia, ejaia emtraia, va vos doma veraia, echaia emplaia gelos am semnestraia. non es perdura, ma quanta magnitus endura.
Men, begin repairs on the barricades. See to our wounded. We'll need every man to hold them again.
However, in the meantime, despite the sheer violence you see, no one is even seriously hurt here today. He said what he used to do. So, can I have a big round of applause this year for the combatants of Historia Normannis that calls the dead to rise!
The two are going at each other. This is the savage and well done, well done.
First man down.
Sir Matthew, I hope he's not hurt.
And in the words, Sir Matthew apparently has a point to prove.
That's fair. Oh. Castle's built, benches dug, holes filled in. Manual labour, I believe, is manual labour. Yes.
Sir Matthew!
She puts fools very poorly. The high standing, she's taken place in precedence at the table. Robert's now entertaining her. They're putting teams of knights against each other in tournament for entertainment, hoping to ease her mood. Once again, he's going to fight competitively. Cheer for the Hayes team. Well, it seems that Robert's knights, perhaps they're warmed up. They've got the...
Good, Sir Matthew!
And the victors again! Lord Robert's...
I feel that I have turned up here. You are colluding with the French. You are not following orders given to you by your king. Captain, arrest this man.
Now, these awkward conversations on the table. They're calling a accusation of treason against the king. Captain did not know duty and ordered the arrest of Robert and the French ambassador for speaking such treasonous things.
So these friends, they've retreated, Captain, as they do best. My Lord Robert was clearly a traitor. He was given instructions by the king he swore to serve. However, I am here now. I am Nicola de Haye. I claim Kenilworth Castle, and I will build the defences for the coming war against the French. Captain, make ready. Surf out a barricade. I feel they'll be back.
And so, the conspiracy uncovered. So breaks new mutiny. That's the last Shakespeare quote, I promise. Lady Nicola's ordered the arrest of Robert, who fled, presumably to find more allies in his conspiracy. We've all had these meals where conversation turns uncomfortable. Generally, they don't result in dead Welshmen. But, you know, things got a little more hands-on back in 1215. Lady Nicola now has to do Robert's work for him and try to fortify the castle against whatever recriminations may come. However, despite the violence you have seen, these skilled men-at-arms have not been injured, he says, hopefully. So, we can have a big round of applause for combatants of Historia Normannis. So I call for the dead to rise. Act 2 of our story should take place here at 1:30. But it's coming up now, he says, having memorised it. What a palaver's world of wonder. A breathtaking manic romp showcasing 30 years of stupidity. Well, that could be interesting. Please go around, explore the encampments, speak to all the performers and participants, have a closer look at the clothes, the armour, the weapons. We're willing to show and talk at length about just about anything. And if we don't know an answer, we can find someone who can. That's not a guarantee because that makes me liable. But for the time being, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your day.
So we've just finished cooking our lunch. We had some pottage, which is a vegetable stew. We had yellow carrots, onions, broad beans, peas, and that's more kind of our peasanty food. We have also made a Saracen's Bluet, which is beef in like a red wine with milk and some cinnamon, cloves, and the spices would have balanced out our humours. Food is very medicinal in these days. We are just cooking up dessert now, so we're having stewed apples with honey, cinnamon and raisins, just to keep ourselves warm in the cold. And yeah, that's about it. That's what we're doing.
We are Historia Normannis. We are a 12th century reenactment society. We tend to reenact the battles and sieges regarding the rebellion of Matilda against Stephen as our main area of interest. But we also cover some periods either side of that as well. Today we're at Kenilworth for our annual society show where up to 400 of our members attend. And as you look around the encampment, you can see us doing all the various crafts and skills that we undertake as part of our society. I'm dressed as a nun. I'm part of the oratores, those that pray, and we are interested in things like brewing and medicine, praying, working the land. We also have the general oratores who are priests and represent the church. We've got the laboratories, those that work, and we have our peasantry who work the fields. We've got our craftsmen who make bows, make shields, make pots. We've got our ladies who embroider, and every craft that's required basically for a 12th century lifestyle.
To be honest, this method of reducing a bit of timber is just about as useful today as it was 100 years ago. It just has less practical application. Technique is fairly straightforward. Take a sharp knife, in this case draw knife, hold it at an angle, force it through your timber and try to make sense of the grain. This particular piece is going to be a banner pole for my Lord Constable, who has suddenly discovered at short notice that it doesn't fit into the stand he has for it and is understandably rather upset about this. Normally I'd be using that thing over there.
So what he's doing is shaping the haft for an axe to sit the head on, removing the material so it can sit squarely on, using a shave horse and a draw knife. Slow progress. Slow learning.
What about the historical backgrounds?
So I mean, woodwork is a big part of it. It helps make buildings, sort of any hafts for any weapons, obviously all the chests that people are using would all be done by woodwork carpenters. So it's a big part of it. And the variety of tools, from everything like I say, benches, chests, tables, all very big part of it all done by very important and trained people with apprentice system. So you'd have like a couple of apprentices learning the craft, and a couple of overseers teaching and passing on the skills and knowledge.
Why there is a red thing on it?
So we use red to indicate that it's sharp, so it doesn't accidentally get picked up and swung at someone. Any sharp tools have got a red thread on for us, as opposed to obviously reenactment-wise, we've got a lot of weapons, swords that aren't sharp, so they don't have a red cord on. So it's just a safety measure.
This is kind of chess. Basically, I've carved up a set, which would be kind of fitting for this environment. You know, we're making lots of wooden things, and so what we've got here is all the different pieces that we typically have in modern day chess. So we've got like the king as normal, we've got like the knights and the rooks, and the pawns at the front. But because this is the 12th century, a lot of the different kind of styles which have emerged over like the past few centuries weren't there. So like this is kind of a more Persian influenced game, because a lot of the different aspects which would be in like the modern day game haven't arrived yet effectively, or haven't been developed. So because of this, like we don't have a queen, we have like a little advisor, so he's got like a little seat there. And also the other main change is that instead of having a bishop, there's an elephant. And the moves are mostly the same. The main differences are with the advisor and the elephant, in that an elephant can move one square diagonally, hopping over like another piece, or like in any direction. And the advisor can also, but the advisor can only move like one square in each direction. So yeah, there's a lot less power because of those. So like the rook and the knight are very, very powerful in comparison. the game is a lot slower. Like sometimes they would just have kind of like preset positions, so like 13, 14 moves in, and then they would just start from there because it could just take so long. And there wouldn't be like castling like there is in today, or like en passant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very, very slow game, and it was typically within like the upper classes, so like knights and whatever, because it wasn't so far spread. It was typically only within the upper classes that had access to it, because I think it arrived around like mid 11th century-ish time in most places in Europe. There's definitely some documented findings in like Poland from the 12th century, and the Isle of Lewis chess set, which you'll probably see around here today as well. However, I don't know how exactly those were used, because sometimes like there was one set from Barcelona, the Auger set, which was a set of crystal rocks which have been carved, and I don't know about you, I don't expect everyone would have had access to those. So my thought was, well, typically, you know, if I'm just like a bodyguard or something like that, I would have probably only have had access to a basic set of them. I wouldn't have access to. This one's kind of a bit of a Viking influence to it. It's a much later pommel, and the sword is also slightly later. I designed it for the Oak Sharp website, so it's got quite a wide fuller because of that's the design of it. So yeah, this arrived quite late in Europe in the 12th century, 12th, 13th century. So they would have been very, very fashionable, and you know, it's quite useful if you know the sharp end isn't working and you want to use the blunt end.
So we've got our surgeon side here, which is primarily men, and our herbalist side, which is primarily women. A lot of the things that we use in modern medicine are used in periods, so things like we have our dentistry. Sadly, the most common injury in medieval times was crush injuries, so we've got this tool here. Would have been used on the finger like that, and then you would have had a mallet that would have literally gone like that. Knock the finger off, sadly. We'd rather a man lose a finger or a toe than lose an arm or a leg, because you can function without a digit. You can't function without anything, without the other parts, sadly. I don't think he'd be very happy if he lost his job due to the fact of say a friend or that closing a door on him. We'll quickly move on to this side here. So this is our herbalist side. Unfortunately, it's primarily women in period. However, men would have had quite a good knowledge. So we've got things like St John's wort and nettle and chamomile. Things like that, we understood that they lifted the mood, we just didn't quite understand exactly the science behind everything. So again, with a lot of Norman medicine, we don't know exactly why it works, because it would have been passed down through generations. We've also got things like lavender in the corner, and then things like salt, and also we've got garlic. So in period, we knew that they had some sort of antiseptic properties. Again, we didn't quite know exactly how. Then move back to some of this. So some of our pain relief is counts as feverfew and meadowsweet. They would have been found in the hedgerows. Unfortunately, pain relief from period wasn't exactly that fantastic. But a lot of the time it ended up with probably some strong wine, and hopefully you passed out from the pain. Sadly, if you've got to lose a limb, this is when our tools like this come in handy. So we've got that one. This is the blade on the inside. It will be used to go through everything else. And then sadly, this is where our saw comes in. It's quite interesting in period because we have a single saw blade, not the modern ones which have two sides, so you wouldn't be able to do the forward and backward motion we have normally. And then this is what comes next, because unfortunately if you've lost an arm, we're going to need to stop the bleeding somehow. So this is a quarter iron. It would be put into the fire, brushed off, had some oil placed on it, and it would be used to cauterise the wound. We have several different types as well. So we have one here for arrows, and we have one for sword injuries and axe injuries. A lot of the time it was really, really hard to try and avoid quarter irons, because a lot of the time it would be one of the only things needed. Stopping bleeding in period was not exactly a fantastic art at this point. It was either we stopped your bleeding like that, or we used, for our peasantry and lower classes we have linen thread, and for our higher classes we have silk. Silk often didn't last as well, so our lords are there, I want to have silk because I'm fancy, I want to show myself off. However, it would fail and you probably get a scar in the end of it.
Sadly, some of their wives didn't want them to use quarter irons because they didn't want the scars to be horrendous. A lot of our lords decided to go for that, so they'd get a scar automatically, and their wives couldn't be angry at them. However, linen is a much stronger put-on, and it's a lot. I think pretty sure you can break your finger quicker than you can break that when you're trying to actually pull it.
I'm the Lady Potter. Welcome to my store. I'm trading for my local community here, and I have some pots here. These are aquamarilians. They're water bearers. So, as we didn't use others for cooking, we need to wash our hands. So these would be used at the table to wash hands and get yourself nice and clean. And this one is particularly dragon eating a man. And then we have ram, again aquamarilian.
I'll cook when you're there. Could be enough to exactly
I particularly love working with copper oxides. These are just like little water bearers, little water cups sort of thing.
Hello, welcome. I am fixing my Sayax, which broke yesterday. So I've pre-made all of the holes using an awl. So I'm using a saddle stitch. I'm dipping all of my, I'm coating all of my linen thread in beeswax to give it a little bit of waterproofing so that water doesn't leak onto the metal.
Master!
It also helps it run through the stitch easier.
This is a lucette, and this is lucette braid. It's basically just a really easy way of kind of making cord that would have gone around people's stockings or held up their hose. Most 12th century women would have this kind of item on their belt at all times, because it's just kind of thing you can easily do when like chatting or pretty much any time during the day. So you pull this, and this pulls that loop tight and then goes over there, and then you flip it.
Okay, so you said 4 threads.
So you have to go to 4 different number.
So is it either 5 threes or more, or 4 fours or more?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see it makes like a very nice kind of square braid that's like really, really rigid and strong. So it's quite an efficient method. Alright, so everyone gets 4 dice, and the aim of the game is to figure out how many of a certain number of dice there are in. So you might say that there are at least 3 5s. Say if you've got 2 5s in your own hand, that will mean that it's likely that there are at least 3 5s in the group. So the next person in the round has to then either increase the bet if you have to increase one of the numbers, or they can call liar because they don't think that there are at least 3 5s. And then it's kind of like a bet between the 2 people. So the person who called liar will get a dice if there are not 3 5s, and the person who was called liar on will get a dice from the person if there are.
Right.
So basically the first person out without any dice loses.
Makes sense. Do we want to give it a go?
Yeah.
Alright. I'll start.
So once you get to 6s, you kind of keep raising it if you're from 6 to 1.
Yeah, you go from 6 to 1.
Can you just go infinitely then?
Yeah, I have 44.
No, because one of the...
Eventually somebody will call liar.
Let's say 3 4s.
Not inherently. If everyone says 1,
are we going
2,
in the same?
3, 4,
Yeah.
5,
So you can either call
6.
liar or increase the bet.
What did you say?
3 4.
How many days? 5 4.
You said 4 4.
And the whole point is you can lie, so you can look at your dice. You might not have any 4s.
5 4s. 5 4.
So at the moment I'm setting up my my Huntsman's display, but I'm also making myself some garters as I snap my other ones. So making myself some new bits to knock off.
How do you make it?
It's simple, you just take some wool, take some strands of wool, braid them together along the thing, and it forms a nice little thing to keep my hose up. So it starts as just some strands of wool and yarn, and you simply braid them. The thicker they are, the stronger they tend to be, which is why I've taken 3 strands of 3 bits of yarn. And then it's just a process of knotting and then the sort of tedious process of plaiting them together. But when I'm not sorting out my clothing, I primarily work as our Lord's huntsman, who... My Baron is not here, but our Lord is, as you can see. And what we have here is assorted bits of kit involved in huntsman's trades. So I have my bow for hunting deer, which we have the antlers for and the skin. We have some snares for trapping rabbit, or hare more accurately, and somewhere we have a boar spear which would be used for hunting boar. And then we were meant to have some dogs at the end of that, but I left them in the care of Robert, who seems to have gone off, so I'm assuming he's lost them.
Attack some barricades, and hopefully we'll defend them well. And then there's Act 3, where we'll see what happens.
I'm trying to sew a fillet to go with my wimple to make it look slightly less messy, as it currently is. Because I am a good Norman woman, and so I must be pious and have my head and my hair covered, especially my ears.
Why is that?
Because I'm a good Christian, and so then the Holy Spirit does not impregnate me through my ears, like the Virgin Mary.
I get to sit here in the corner feeling warm. And that. Yeah, so welcome to our Sunday encampment here at Kenilworth. As you see, I'm portraying a lord, so I get to sit in a tent and wrap up in a blanket and a nice chair and stuff as I watch everybody do all the work.
Heavy bedo hevna quena, folkets frovran engles blis. Maidan when it made a clan, sweet in word none other knees. On the heat is well ascend of all the women who hasty please. Me left they sweat at me.
I went to the wrong verse. Because okay.
Just sing the one we're doing.
Me sweaty left they hear me then, and there was me if be will
Ambulan bastu per pari, prodigus non redimi, vitium avari, verbus temperantia, quandra singulari, debet medium, adus romque vitium, cauce contemplari.
They do want to let people not
Me and Steve over there, we're Misericordia. We've been playing together for about 30 years and we're playing with Normannis at the moment. We're doing all 13th century music. Some of our instruments aren't very 13th century, but that's showbiz. And this is my son who's joined us for the first time. This is Craddock, who's been doing some singing and playing. And would you like to introduce yourself? We've never met him before, but he plays really well and he's joining in.
I'm Fraser, otherwise known as John of Westbury, otherwise known as John of Easton. I'm a musician with Normannis, haven't been playing instruments for very long, but I had the pleasure of tambourining with this band over the last few days. Very fun.
Yeah, we'd like to do more stuff with him, so if you'd like us to come and play, just let him or him know. And get the old timers on board as well.
This is sort of 16th century sort of style. That's more like the 13th century, 12th century. Yeah, we got this in. I'm playing a hurdy-gurdy here. In fact, hurdy-gurdy is my main instrument. But we also have harps and citterns, and I do percussion, different things. This is a 13th century event. We're doing a 12th century one later. I probably play more of the 14th century music, really, the Ars Nova, some complex stuff. Outside medieval life, I make up my own multi-track things, play modern music, different sorts of things on a different hurdy-gurdy that has plugins and that. In terms of medieval lineup, the lineup you've seen is a unique lineup. Well, we may repeat it, but it was going to be me and my wife. She's ill, so I'm playing with Anne-Marie, who I've done a lot with over the last 30 years. Her son is doing really well. He's now singing and everything, which he didn't used to a while back, so that's really good. And then we met Fraser, wherever he's gone, here, first time, who turned up. It's great fun playing with a band of four. It's a little bit on the edge. How many times are we going through? Who's doing what next? It's not rehearsed. But we played, 3 times for 3 days, and it's quite fun to be building it up as we go. It'd be nice to play in this arrangement again.
On this table here, you can see some of the things that we've made. Not all of them have been made here, but all of them can be made with this. It's a lot of work. You've always got to have someone pumping the bellows. You can see not all of them are completely shiny. Most things wouldn't end up shiny here because we are a blacksmith. Okay, the steel would come out like this. It would, however, be sent to a whitesmith, which usually are coinciding with blacksmiths. They would work on a grindstone and a whetstone to sharpen things, shine things up. Most of the jobs on site are usually repair jobs. As you can see, some things look a little more rough for wear than others. Arrowheads are the most common thing that we make, just because way back when you would need a lot of them. Obviously you can see these are rough and ready. They don't need to be pretty, they don't even need to come back, they need to do damage. Unless of course you're working on a lord's hunting arrow. In that case, the better, well, the more beautiful the better. Now you can see that these are pretty much made the same way as a spear, just larger. There is a lot of transferable skills. The end of an arrowhead and the end of the belt buckle, pretty much the same. With a taper. Same with a leather awl. Hammers are a little more tricky. The evidence for the hammers that we have in the modern day, the hammers that we have in the modern day, we don't have as much evidence for way back when. So we have to improvise and deal with not as great tools. You can see right now the table's in the way. We just had to clear some stuff out of the way as we leave. But forge, obviously, bellows. Now this right here is called a bosch. This is where we quench things, okay? So when you put things in water, you call it quenching. Obviously we've got an anvil here, nice and simple. Most anvils at the time would only be roughly about the size of your fist, maybe that. Steel, again, metal is very expensive. Now, funny, have you ever heard of the phrase bish, bash, bosh? It's a blacksmithing phrase. So you bish and bash it on here, and you bosh it in there. Water's also very good for hardening. However, already carbonized material is very hard, right? So very brittle as well. So if you put hot, high carbon material in water, you end up with over-hardening and getting brittle, which is why you might see some things snap. There are a couple of things that snap, but not with us here. You can oil, quench it as well, which will harden things. After the hardening process, you have to temper it as well. Now tempering is where you heat it up ever so slightly, but not quite as hot as you would. There would be no colour. There would be no colour. Here you can see actually the master blacksmith, not in any apron, but he's working away.
I'm just rearranging the dirt so it cools me better.
Yes.
This is a hauberk, so this is a squire or knight's armour. It is made out of solid links and 8mm riveted links. So I have been modifying this armour so there are patches without rivets, and I'm going to start by filling them in. First of all, starting with the coif. So this is an opening that allows the head to go through the neck, but then closes, so that you can actually have a central arm like mine is here. The links are stored authentically in a little pouch, like this. So these links, oh, I'll get one here, are flat steel that's then hammered, and then a punch is driven through, which leaves a hole for a rivet to go into. In my little bag of tools, I have a small linen bag, absolutely full of rivets. So I usually do, I'll empty these links. So these rivets have a dome on one head and are flat on the other. They go through the aforementioned drill hole, and then you take riveting pliers, which are specialist pliers which have a hole drilled into each face, which you then use to crush the rivet, which creates two swollen sections, so this link cannot come apart. It is essentially one piece of metal now joined. I will just carry on filling in all the rivets.
Hello, I'm Henri Duval. I am the Bishop of London. I'm one of the many priests you'll see here where was at Kenilworth Castle this weekend. Priests were a very common feature of 12th century households, and you'd see them in various places within medieval society. So churches were extremely common. You'd see a parish church in every village, and wealthy people would have their own private chapels as well. So clergymen were very often employed also for their clerical skills, things like reading and writing, tutoring children, dealing with money and finances. And so you'd see them embedded within nobles' households and also within just general society at large. So I'm currently dressed in a quite sort of simple black cassock, which is just my sort of simple dress-down garment that I'd be wearing when I'm not in my vestments. This is what I'd be wearing when I'm out and about conducting official business.
Hello, welcome to our encampment. My name is Lady Alexandra de Percy. I am the noble lady of Westmoreland and Northumberland. Our encampment today, we've been doing our own food display, and that's lots of different things which would have been eaten in the 12th century. And that's from lots of rich meats, spices, wines, and things that those higher up would eat, alongside things for my servants as well. So that might be a vegetable pottage, something with pulses, whole grain breads, with a whiter bread reserved for those of us that can afford it. You can also see who I am in society because of what I'm wearing. So you can see today I'm wearing a court dress. This dress is made of linen and is dyed a deep rich red. To get this red, you'd have to use a Kermes beetle, which would have to be imported, and then you'd most likely need to dye and over dye the fabric. And you can see who I am as well in society because of my sleeves. So you can see I've got all this extra fabric, which is just a way of me showing, look, I can afford this little bit more. And the same goes for my lovely long belt here. As you can see, it's studded with gold, and again that extra little bit of decoration shows a little bit about who I am. And you can tell I've got lots of interesting things on my belt as well. I've got a pouch which is dyed with oxblood and has been tooled by a master leather worker. And I also have a needle pouch, a paternoster, and a set of keys. So you know that a woman is important if she has keys on her belt. This will be the key to Carlisle Castle here, as well as keys to very expensive things within my household as well. So that's just a little bit about me and who I am, and I hope you enjoy looking around my encampment. Right, jewellery. You'll also see on my head that I'm wearing a Barbeton veil, This was quite a high fashion item in the 12th century. It was actually made popular by Eleanor of Aquitaine, who started to wear a barbette, completely scandalised the Pope, who banned it. But 50 years later, when she died, you can see it's on her effigy of her tomb. So she really was a key person for fashion. And you'll see I'm holding mine. I've got some jewelled ruby pins. And I'm also wearing a range of other jewellery as well. So I have rings on my fingers. I've got amethyst and amber and some jade, and also an enamelled brooch as well, which would have to be made by a master jeweller.
This is the peak of Norman fashion. I don't know what you're on about.
Robin's name, Robin's name.